Amazing.
We're here on behalf of Delta Kappa Epsilon International. Whereas Delta Kappa Epsilon has suffered during the current year the loss of Brother John Vincent Kearney, member of our beloved Delta Chi chapter and friend of our dear Theta Zeta chapter. Whereas we desire to express at this time our deep sustain of the gravity of loss we have so sustained, now therefore be it resolved that we, the Board of Directors of Delta Kappa Epsilon, do hereby express our deep feeling of sorrow and regret for the loss of our brother. We have been inspired by his adventurous approach to living a full life. He was a man who always endeavored to maintain those enduring principles for which our fraternity stands. Brother Kearney was a gentleman, a scholar, and a jolly good fellow. He truly exemplified our motto, friends from the heart forever. We tender to his family our deepest sympathy and can only remind them that our mourning is common with theirs. With heartfelt condolences, on the 7th day of March, the year 2011, Stanford McMillan, Chairman, Board of Directors, Delta Kappa Epsilon.
Hello, everyone. I didn't expect to be here talking at John's funeral. I've known John since I was 18 years old. That's 35 years ago when I first met him. And so I didn't know him the first 18 years of my life, but I knew him pretty much every year thereafter. We both went to school together. He was a transfer into Cornell. I think it was about my year and a half into school when I first ran into him. He was in the mechanical engineering program, same as me. And so I haven't known him as deeply as perhaps many of you here have, day in, day out, but I've known him over a long arc of time, which I think gives me a unique perspective. So I want to say a few things about that. So one of the first things is when you say goodbye to somebody, you never know how long it is till you meet them again. And in the case of John and myself, it turns out that we would meet pretty much, I kind of reviewed it, anywhere from 2 months to 6 months was the period of time in between the moments that we would hook up again. And then, except for this one time when we worked at the same company, that was pretty much the cadence with which I would meet John. And so I have a time-lapse photography version of him. Young, I pulled out the old Cornell yearbook and saw his picture, and my wife Grace, who's also known him as long as I have, said, "Yeah, that's the John I remember." And I'm looking at it, and it's not. I vaguely remember that guy, but it doesn't look at all like I remembered him. And I guess that's how it goes. You don't notice the change while it's happening. You don't only notice it in hindsight. And so, so John's the guy. He pulls up in front of the apartment I was renting with a flatbed, open bed truck. I would think it was a Datsun at the time, with a canoe out the back. I don't know why he had to carry a canoe with him. He was just going to classes, going in and about the town, but there was a canoe in the back of his truck all the time. And he was a pretty wild guy. He had a lot of things on his mind besides just school, and he and I had that in common. He joined the fraternity, which was, I think he's the only one of my friends that did. That was a pretty different thing at that time to join a fraternity among the group of people that we knew. He dived in and he embraced it big time. So in school he was very competent. He wasn't the top of his class, and the only thing I'll say is his grades were higher than mine. But we made it out, and he decided, he graduated a semester early, came out to Silicon Valley. I didn't know that at the time, but I 6 months later decided to come out to Silicon Valley also, and then discovered he was here as well. So he came out here and fell in love with the place much as I did, and spent the rest of his life here. He and I were neither big planners. We would never do plans further than a day out. Like, let's meet over here for lunch, let's go over here to do this or the other thing. And that's, I don't know if that was the way it was with you guys, but I think that's as far ahead as he could look. And maybe that was enough. We would meet for lunch very frequently, and the discussions, although they were always kind of the same topics, the actual content was drastically different every time. And so the topics were generally jobs, and it would be, the specifics would be he just got a new one, or he was in the middle of one, or he had just lost one. And with each meeting, it could be completely different each time, and usually was. Relationships. He's got a new one, he's in the middle of one, he just lost one. That was also something. What have you been doing? In his case, it would be things like epic motorcycle trip. He just come up from Central America and hopped on his bike and just took off. Or hang gliding, he did that until he couldn't do it anymore. Or I would get a call saying surf's up, and what that meant was it had been raining and the levees had filled up with water, and he wanted to go canoeing, which is totally insane if you've ever seen the water down the levees here after a rainstorm. What was very impressive to me is he stayed connected to me as well as a lot of the folks from college over decades. And even if they were not in the same state, and if they moved a lot, he managed to track everybody down and keep his friendships going. So he got a very big family. And by that I mean his relatives, certainly, but also his friends, his workmates, and his schoolmates. And he hung on to them and was loyal, held on. It's a great example to everybody. So one of the things that he was perfect at is anytime you meet him for lunch, you could count on that to help you move things. If you needed to move a house or a lab, he would show up unannounced, and it was just perfect. He was unfailingly loyal, and he, no matter what was going on, you could count on him for level-headed emotional support. So